this world is energy. E equals mc squared. And if there is nothing except energy, we cannot, of course, say what energy is. Because if everything is energy, then there is no class of events or things outside energy, and you can only describe something that you can put into a class, that is to say, something that you can put into an intellectual box. But although you can't describe energy, or you can't even describe reality, everybody knows perfectly well what it is. You simply feel it. And you feel energy in terms of a multiplicity of vibrations. And those vibrations can, of course, be measured, as we measure light, sound, heat, weight, and so forth. But we cannot experience all the vibrations of energy at the same time. That would be the same sort of confusion as if you slammed down all the notes on the piano at once, or plucked all the strings of a harp at the same time. What we do, therefore, is we select. First of all, our senses are selective. The eye does not record the whole spectrum of light vibrations. The ear does not receive the whole spectrum of sound vibrations. They restrict themselves to a narrow band. And beyond that, we select in various other ways. There are certain vibrations which we consider noteworthy and important and worth paying attention to, and others which we overlook as being insignificant and unimportant. And thus a child will very often select experiences that adults deem ridiculous, because a child has not yet been taught how to select according to our preconceived notions of what should be picked out. And so children will cherish rubbish, for example, which adults think should be thrown away. They will notice features of people's faces which are not supposed to be noticed. They will do all sorts of funny things like that. And furthermore, a child will be taught which of these vibrations are good and which are bad. And the bad ones are, of course, to be avoided if possible. But inevitably they come up, because if you have a good-bad valuation of these various spectra, if you're going to have the good end of the spectrum, you also got to have the bad end. No matter how far you succeed in making life comfortable and pleasurable, you are looking at it with a scale. And at this end of the scale are the things called good. Therefore, at this end of the scale are the things called bad. Now, you may push the scale in the direction of good, see, but there's always going to be a bad end, because there wouldn't be a good end if there weren't a bad end. Sometimes we feel the scale is going this way, and then we say things are getting worse and worse, because that's the way the scale's moving, but there's always the good end of it. So that when you're starving in a concentration camp, there are always certain events to which you look forward, and which sort of brighten things up. You simply cannot have a continuous experience of life in which everything is completely bad, or an experience of life in which everything is completely good. But we are under the illusion that that could be arranged, and it gives us a great deal of trouble, being under that illusion. Anyhow, it makes sense. Indeed, in a very literal sense, it makes sense that we should be selective, just in the same way as when we play the piano or play the harp, we pick out all these vibrations in different orders. And that's the fun of it. That's the game of existence. However, you can get hung up on your game. you can get into a fixed, rigid feeling that those vibrations which you were taught to select when you were a child, and that's the way you find out how to select, it's what people tell you, you can get hung up onto the idea that that way of selecting things is the way, and that there are not possible alternatives, and furthermore, that you could get into a state of consciousness where you could experience all vibrations simply as vibrations and not deem them either good or bad. And that would be the point of view which Buddhists speak of as seeing the suchness of things. That is Zen, is to dig whatever vibration happens and feel it simply as something going yoing, 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 yoing. You know? When we are little babies, we don't know how to interpret these vibrations because the world is something like a Rorschach plot. It is a wiggly patterning of energy. And the energy is the same as the patterning. There is no kind of stuff called energy, which is formed into patterns, just as there's no kind of stuff called matter, which is formed into things. The things, the shapes, are the matter. You see, matter, simply the word matter, is the same as the word meter. Does it matter? Does it amount to anything? That is to say, is it solid? We say something solid really amounts to something because you can't shove your finger through it and it might shove itself through you. That matters. I mean, it measures up. It's important. But it isn't made of some kind of stuff. It's simply an intense concentration of energy. And it always is on the move. Everything is flux. Like you see a candle burn and you say there's a flame. Now, a flame is a noun. But if I say the candle is burning, I'm using a verb. And that's a little bit, I think, more accurate. Because the flame is a stream of hot gas. And it moves with tremendous rapidity. So there is no, as it were, gas permanently in the flame. It keeps running. But the shape stays for a while. In the same way, an eddy or whirlpool in water may stay constantly in the same place in a stream for years, although the water is passing through it all the time. But every time we come back and sit on that particular bank of the stream, we see the same old whirlpool, as in the near Niagara Falls. Well, we are just the same as that. We are like flames, like whirlpools, and we are a stream, a very complex stream consisting not only of electrical energy, which constitutes our nuclear shapes, but we are also a stream of water, milk, cereal, vegetables, beefsteak, medicine, vitamins, heat, cosmic rays, heaven only knows. All these things are pouring through us all the time. But we recognize each other because the way in which it's playing, the way in which this energy is dancing, keeps a fairly consistent form. And we recognize those forms and we say, John Doe, Mary Smith, etc., etc., etc. But eventually, of course, it gives out. The form does what we call get old. Although we have ideas about that, you see, again, according to the way we've been brainwashed, we say, well, getting old isn't so good. But it's very beautiful. If you get your head right, that's a very grand thing to do. You can completely readjust your thinking about it. Just as we accept the beautifully colored leaves in autumn. And as we say, we like a well-aged whiskey or a mature cheese. See, it's all the same kind of a thing. So then, if you've been brainwashed into certain fixed opinions all life long, there is some importance, perhaps, into becoming more flexible. Especially when a certain set of opinions that we call a culture or a way of life shows clear evidence of not working or of crumbling. We're in that situation today. A situation where we see that the view of the universe, which is fundamental to Western civilization, the Jewish picture of the world, the Christian picture of the world, even the 19th century materialistic picture of the world, all these things are not working. And people get terribly anxious when their basic view of how you should play the harp of life is not holding up. Therefore, under such circumstances, we have to readjust our consciousness and reset and find perhaps a new way of plucking the strings or of structuring the world. But in order to do that, we have to pass through an intermediate state in which we learn to experience the vibrations without putting values on them, experiencing them without describing them, naming them, or trying to fit them into some system of concepts. Good and bad, high class and low class, refined or crude, healthy or sick. We have to take right off all this thing and learn to have what is called in Zen mushin, meaning no mind. That means not no consciousness, but no conceptions, no fixed ideas, no one-sided view of things. It's really easy to do that, but everybody wants to try and make it difficult. People are compulsively complicated. And so you might say in an inverse way there is a certain difficulty in not becoming compulsively complicated, because that requires a certain kind of intelligence. Not what we call intellectuality in the ordinary way, not verbal intelligence, because that's not the only kind of intelligence. It requires organic intelligence. And that's the intelligence that you have in your organism that is responsible for your fantastically beautiful nervous system, for your veins, or your alimentary tract, or your glands, and for the color of your eyes. But we are not ordinarily aware of being in any way responsible for that. That's something that seems to happen